All right, folks. So you guys probably know who Kim Iversen is. She's a very new progressive channel that has just really come on the scene. I think her first video was from 6 months ago, guys. That's half a year, and her channel is already over, I believe it's either 120,000 or 140,000 subscribers. Whichever one of those that is, that's an insane growth that, honestly, I mean, pretty much all of the progressive channels from their beginning really took a lot longer to get to that position. I actually don't know what the growth of the Humanist Report was, but the growth of Secular Talk and the other shows, it was a long grind from the bottom. Not for Kim Iversen though. Her channel just completely went through the roof right from the jump, essentially, and it's still growing like crazy. I think like over 20K subs a month, so you can count how much that's on pace for, but that's an insane amount, a new progressive YouTuber, ostensibly, on the scene. And, it's interesting. So if you follow her on Twitter, you'd notice that she has a lot of odd takes. And I did a video about her already. If you haven't seen that, I recommend checking that out because that'd be a good foundation for this video that we're going to be doing here. But it looks like Kim Iversen is going to be taking the Dave Rubin route, and she's incredibly suspect. Now, what I told you guys in the last video is I'm not sure if it's some combination of cognitive limitations or nefarious slash bad faith actions going on here, but it's some mix of the two. I'm generally I'm convinced that she's dumb as rocks, really stupid, just dumb. But also there may be some nefariousness going on, and you'll see what I mean by that. So, taking a sort of page out of Rubin's book, if you will, she sent out a tweet saying, "I hate Twitter because it's filled with the authoritarian outrage left. I keep coming back because rational liberals have an obligation to call this BS out. Where were the rational conservatives when their party was hijacked? I won't let real liberalism go down without a fight." So it's weird that she's using the term liberal, by the way, because liberal has been really watered down. And now when you say the term liberal, I don't know if you're talking about Bernie Sanders or Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton, because those two people are fundamentally extremely different in their ideologies. And so while I still personally consider myself a liberal, I don't use that term to identify myself because I don't think it properly demonstrates who I really am and my positions. I would call myself a progressive, a social democrat. Those are probably the two main labels that I would use to define myself personally. So I find it odd that she's using liberal. Maybe it's nothing to scoff at. Maybe it's something just interchangeable, fine. But it also could be an indicator of sort of a lack of understanding of political labels in our current times. But as you can see here, this is exactly a page out of Dave Rubin's book, where Dave Rubin literally did this. He went, "Oh my gosh, the left left me." You know what I'm saying? The left, they went too far off the deep end, and I'm now no longer left wing because they went crazy. They became really big SJWs, so I changed my position on economics, foreign policy, regulation, domestic policy, foreign policy. I changed all of that because the left went so far SJW and for open borders. So this is right out of Dave Rubin's book. Now, I'm not sure which rational liberal she's even talking about, but what's hilarious to me is that she's saying the quote-unquote authoritarian left that she's talking about, this is spawned out of the controversy of supposedly a black congresswoman was told to go back to her country by a white man. I'm not sure if that story ended up actually being true or not, but regardless, it really had nothing to do whether or not it was true. Had more to do with, it's just a mean thing, just, just kind of dust it off and just move on is what she said. She said, sticks and stones may hurt your bones, but words will never hurt me. That's what she said. Tell that to yourself every single day. That's what she said. But also, another thing I'd like to point out is, when were conservatives rational at any point whatsoever? When have conservatives ever been rational? This is another really red flag, because what do you mean rational conservative? Were the days of Ronald Reagan rational where he dropped the top marginal tax rate from like 91 down to, I believe it was like 38 or something like that, or 40 or 50 or something like that, trickle down economics. I believe it was Reagan who had removed a rule against stock buybacks, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, when were conservatives rational? You know the stuff that Ronald Reagan was doing in Latin America during his administration? Do you know? Do you ever wonder why Latin America is so, just in shambles and destroyed? It's because we played games with their governments and societies and peoples throughout the late 1900s in an effort to combat communism and socialism, and so we funded the Contras to be against the Sandinistas, and we kind of ruined their countries for decades to come. When were conservatives rational? That's what I don't really understand. Where does that come from? That's another really big red flag if you ask me personally. But I want to repeat, guys. I won't let real liberalism go down without a fight. So again, man, we're just talking about more Dave Rubin nonsense. This is literally like I'm watching like a replay or something of just what Dave Rubin has been saying for the past like 3 years. It's pretty remarkable to me, in fact. But we've actually got more, of course. She says, as I referenced earlier, that people should just be nice. And someone makes a comment here. And she responds by saying, quote, white men are now the boogeyman. So, again, this is more, Dave Rubin. In fact, this is more than just Dave Rubin. It's kind of like just the typical conservative talking points of like, oh, the left hates white males. In the, intersectional hierarchy of feminism or whatever, intersectionalism, white males are at the bottom. They're the least victims. And now she's saying white men are now the boogeyman. So this immediately should be a huge red flag, of course, obviously. Now, we've got more here. Another one where she says, I just hope the left wakes up and realizes we can't reach that goal by demonizing white people. Who's demonizing white people, dude? Now, there are actually, I'll see a couple of takes on Twitter and some, pockets of people who may end up doing that sometimes, and I disagree with those and I call those out. But the left as a monolith is not, quote, demonizing white people, and to say that in the context of what we're talking about right now and what you were talking about is hilarious to me. We're not demonizing white people, and it's incredibly cringe to say this, but if again, like these tweets that I'm reading to you folks, think about it like this. Imagine I did this, okay? Imagine I blurred out the username and I showed you that tweet. Who do you think would say this? Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, possibly Joe Rogan, those kinds of people, Ben Shapiro, whoever, but mostly Tim Pool and Dave Rubin. You wouldn't guess Kim Iversen. Well, now you would, because obviously you're seeing the tweets now and you know what she's like, but, it's just, it's pretty bad here. So she actually went on a defense tour of Dave Rubin, or I should say more of a tirade, or tangent is the word I want to use. So someone says, not sure if your endgame goal is to be sponsored by right-wing oligarchs. Your videos being demonetized by YouTube definitely won't be an issue because Coke groups will pay money. Ask Rubin Report or Ben Shapiro. And then I say, by you being so highly informed on current and previous foreign and domestic issues tells me that you are intentionally choosing not to educate yourself on racial issues, sounding more like Shapiro as if you are dog whistling to his right-wing audience. You have defended Rubin Report in the past. So I'm not actually sure if she's really all that informed on really stuff. If you just kind of take like the same line of just thinking, you're bound to be right, a lot of the time. So Jimmy Dore, for example, he'll be right on certain things, but we all know he's a doofus who's just uneducated in general and kind of says the same thing, but sometimes it lands, obviously. Sometimes it'll end up being right. But you know that the way that he got there is a really lazy way of thinking. And here is where the defense comes in. She says, I like Rubin Report, always have, and I'm not ashamed of that. I don't always agree with him, but I still enjoy his show quite a bit and thinks he brings up great points in conversation. Was this intended to be some kind of insult? Of course, obviously, there's nothing redeemable about the Rubin Report, and that's also extremely suspect. It has nothing to do either with not agreeing with him. Obviously, Rave Dubin refuses to have on any lefties, and that's, the foremost problem. If he was someone who is actually seriously dedicated to having a free marketplace of ideas on the Dubin Report, we wouldn't really have that big of a problem with him. But that is the case. That's what it ends up being. That's what it is, and that's the problem with it. So, to say that is kind of stupid. He never brings up great points, never brings up great conversations. It's always a huge waste of time. and he shows a big pile of trash. So the person responds saying, Dave Rubin's political perspective changed literally at the same time as his funding changed. You think that's cool? He's literally a mouthpiece for Learn Liberty, a Koch-funded think tank. You should do a video about the Rubin/Koch ideas that you enjoy and review the feedback. She says, how often did you watch Rubin Report? I literally watched all of his shows and watched his evolution right before my eyes. Again, folks, more red flags, more red flags. She studied this, folks. You guys know how, like, NBA players, NFL players, mostly NBA players, watch tape, watch film, see how you can get better in the next game. She's been studying Dave Rubin this whole time. This is hilarious. I literally watched all of his shows and watched his evolution right before my eyes. So she's got an example to go off of. The idea he changed when his funding changed is a smear by those who didn't like the shift. He was well on his way well before his funding. So that's actually true. It didn't change like simultaneously. What Dave Rubin knew is that if I go right wing, I'm going to get a ton of patrons, and that then I'll be able to also get more money by doing partnerships with Learn Liberty. Don't forget, he also did a partnership with the Ayn Rand Institute to push propaganda of objectivism, which is also the Ayn Rand Institute is connected to the Learn Liberty, to the Charles Koch Institute. So yeah, I mean, they didn't change at the same time, but he changed with the knowledge and sort of the knowing that he will increase his funding, which is what matters. Same reason why, Tim Pool's getting a bunch of money, etc., etc. Another person says, okay, it's a massive red flag for me. You do great videos about the issues, but when you spout BS like this, you lose me. Rubin makes videos for PragerU that shits on the left and supported the Baker case. He's a sellout. And then she says, I also agreed with the Baker in that case. This is another red flag. It's odd. You can't force an artist to make a custom artistic art piece for something or someone they are against. If it's a cake in the case, you can't deny selling it, but a custom order, that's art and labor are very different. So if you're down to give custom orders to straight people, you should be giving them to gay people as well. And like the door that opens is really insane to me. Like, so in the Bible, for example, it says that women can't be teachers. Like, would you be okay with bakers discriminating on marriages in which the wife is a teacher? And there are a lot of women who are teachers, right? It just seems really stupid, and you should be forced to make that custom order. And then there are very clear sort of boundaries set. So, for example, if you're Jewish and someone comes in and is trying to do, all kinds of swastikas and whatnot, you don't want to. That's obviously not allowed. But this is not a tough decision whatsoever. If you're making a custom order for straight people, you got to make the custom order for gay people. Someone says, how about Rubin Koch brothers deregulation ideas? Do you agree with that also? And this person says, also Dave Rubin, while he was at TOT, once stated that corporations cannot regulate itself and must be regulated. He most certainly evolved after partnering with Learn Liberty. She says he didn't evolve after his partnership. He got the partnership because he evolved. So a lot of, sort of semantical games going on here. He got the partnership because he evolved. It wasn't a natural evolution. It was an evolution where he knew he was going to benefit his brand. Think about all of the extra money he made. No one cared about him when he was whatever the hell his political opinions were at the Young Turks. No one cared about the Rubin Report. It was trash. No one liked it. And no one watched him. And that's why he switched, man. That's why he switched. Look at how much success he's had. He's been groping Jordan Peterson's, sack for quite a while now. Although his energy is kind of going down, so it looks like Dave Rubin's kind of ditched him. But again, man, this sort of defense of Dave Rubin I find extremely, extremely suspect. Here we got more Dave Rubin-esque comments. It says, money is the root of all evil. This new movement of demonizing whites and conservatives is backfiring. Even liberal independents like myself are pushing back. The far left is going to lose this. Again, man, if I blurred out the name and said, who's this tweet from? Tim Pool, Dave Rubin. Those are your answers, 100%. I know it for a fact, because that's who would say this kind of a comment. Not a progressive commentator. This is stupid, dude. This is dumb. The new movement of demonizing whites and conservative? What? What does that even mean, dude? I don't understand what this means. Demonizing whites? Even liberal independents like myself are pushing back. The far left is going to lose this. And again, really weird, lacking basic knowledge and understanding. In what way is the degree to which someone is left wing dictated by what you deem to be this sort of demonizing whites thing? Can somebody who supports Nancy Pelosi, but you deem to be demonizing whites, far left? Because I would fervently disagree with you in your designation of that person being far left, because clearly their economic ideology is entirely centrist. If you don't support something like single payer and you prefer an ACA, and things like that, and that to me just demonstrates a lack of knowledge, a lack of basic analysis, and just a general stupidity, a general dumbness, lack of knowledge, lack of intelligence, lack of critical understanding, lack of political understanding, etc., etc. So the conclusion to come to with this is, it looks like she's going down this route, but there's some weird combination of cognitive limitations in addition to nefariousness / bad faith acting. But again, this is a weird like Candace Owens and Dave Rubin type of situation, because they're both a mix of both things. Both of them are dumb, incredibly stupid at that, but they're also grifters, so it's possible to be both. Kim Iversen is one of the dumbest people I've seen. I know I say that about a lot of people, where I say, oh, it's probably the dumbest person I've seen. This person does not have basic critical thinking skills at all. In fact, is one of the dumbest people I've ever seen. Again, I know I say that a lot, and I'm sorry, but there's just no way for me to explain to you how stupid Kim Iversen is and how dumb she is, and just the lack of knowledge and intelligence that exists here, to where you're calling people far left who are often the people she's denoting are people who support people like Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi and these people. So, there's no other way to put this, but let me know your thoughts on this down below. Curious to hear them.